Something went wrong, please try again later. Stay in the know. Share your email to get all the latest politics news and headlines from Bristol Live. When Rhian Graham tugged at her piece of rope knotted around the bronze statue that had stood in Bristol city centre for 125 years, she did not believe in that moment the Colston statue would fall. The sun was shining that day on June 7, 2020, and after almost 30 years of campaigns, petitions, exhibitions, and art installations highlighting the Bristol merchants' leading role in the transatlantic slave trade, he fell in a matter of minutes. 10,000 people had come out to march in Bristol that day to take a stand against racial injustice in solidarity with George Floyd, who died after a police officer held his knee on his neck for 9 minutes. Read more. George Ferguson believes City Mayor role should be scrapped. One protester did the same to the neck of the statue of a man who had represented Bristol in Parliament as a Conservative MP more than 300 years ago, and argued against the abolition of slavery, the industry on which his wealth was built. Rhian will finally be opening her bottle of champagne in celebration of the victory she now shares with others across Bristol and throughout the world who were happy to see Colston go. Miss Graham said, "The feeling of rope in your hands, of that statue coming down, the ripples that sent out into Bristol and the rest of the world, I could not be unchanged by that. It inspired me, and I realized that I can be an active player in society, as we all can be. It's quite a deep feeling that's hard to articulate. But it's not about me, it's not even about the four of us, it's about everyone who was there on that day of tidal change of people's consciousness. The network of people I've been introduced to, off the back of this in Bristol, will stay with me forever. I feel embedded into this community now, who have given me so much support." Get the best stories about the things you love most curated by us and delivered to your inbox every day. Choose what you love here. The Colston Four, who were cleared in a historic trial that concluded on January 5, 2021, were supported by thousands across Bristol who set up crowdfunders and benefit gigs and queued for hours to buy the t-shirts Banksy released. Despite the calls from critics that history was erased by the pulling down of statues, the fall of Colston and subsequent trial has brought history to life. When Rhian moved to Colston Road in Easton, she knew little about the man her street had been named after. Having grown up in the predominantly white county of Norfolk, she didn't think much about racism before George Floyd. "I didn't grow up in a multicultural society. It wasn't until year 11 that 2 black children joined my school. I witnessed a lot of casual racism that largely went unchallenged. I've always seen people as people, which in some ways is quite good, but I realize that I've been quite colorblind in not seeing the difficulties that people of color face because of the color of their skin. That was one of the things that made me want to stand in solidarity with them more. I felt that I'd failed a little bit in not using my voice and the privilege I'm allowed because of the color of my skin," said Rhian. The Black Lives Matter protest in June 2020 was one of the first protests that Rhian had attended. She had only taken a passing interest in matters of social justice previously. Having worked in the events industry for 7 years, she had traveled up and down the country, living a hectic lifestyle of festivals and fun. Bristol was attractive to the young women who moved to the city at 25 because she liked the music, culture, and community spirit. "You can feel it on the streets. It's just different to other places," said Rhian. But as she got to know the city better, she became aware of the contradictions. Bristol comes across as this rebellious, liberal, left-wing city, but really it hasn't confronted its past in terms of its involvement in the slave trade. There's still a lot of hurt and pain that exists within the black community of Bristol because of this lack of acknowledgement. We're at a place where we really need to be healing from that and confronting it. With the murder of George Floyd, that really triggered something across the world. It was at a time where I felt I needed to be more engaged in the world around me, and for the first time, this real sense of empathy and feeling like I'd failed in the fight for racial equality by not having done something before, added Rhian. Like many across the country, the lockdown had halted all Rhian's plans. All the work she had lined up was cancelled. Her whole identity had been thrown in the air, and she began to question her existence and purpose in life. Having time on her hands and being moved to take action, after the death of George Floyd, she began to read a book a friend had recommended to her, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, by Rhian Graham. She was humbled when the author sent her a bunch of flowers in the post as a show of solidarity during the trial. It was really humbling, because I was reading that book in the days before the statue came down. It was all about race relations in the UK, and the discrimination that people had faced, and just how hard it is sometimes to be black and British. Like Cleo Lake said in court, it's disgraceful that up until 2015 taxpayers were still paying back the debt compensated to slave traders. You've got the Windrush generation who were told, you're British and met largely with bad housing, segregation, racism, and with their tax, were paying back the enslavers of their ancestors. It's sickening. I really delved into the history of Colston and the merchant venturers and came to learn how little he deserves to be venerated. It's kind of astounding how he managed to stay on that plinth for 125 years, added Rhian. As Rhian sits in her local pub with her boyfriend, Luke Wentworth, the conversation moves to the Common Sense group of Conservative MPs, who are now calling for a retrial of the Colston 4. It's just a group of old white Conservative men, who have had power for a very long time, and didn't ever think that would be questioned, and now suddenly, it is being questioned and they're not happy about it, said Luke. Rhian finds it silly that these Conservative MPs see the statue toppling at something to be defeated as part of their war on woke. It's just a way of belittling the younger generation, who want to see more equality, and people treated with empathy. It's just the right wing trying to find some kind of scapegoat again, added Rhian. Rhian is aware that not everyone is in support of what they did that day, explaining that her grandmother still doesn't quite get it, and although her dad always supported her, he didn't initially understand why people would want to tear it down and how that could be possibly justified. But after many conversations, he is fully with us and a very proud dad, said Rhian. Although many were surprised the 4 were found not guilty, Rhian was never concerned about the outcome of the trial, because in her mind they had already won the moment the statue came down. I've said all along that we were already winning. All of the reactions and positive conversations have already happened as a result of the toppling, and will continue to happen regardless of what result we got. I can't not be engaged in social progression in Bristol, because I've been so much a part of this that it's changed my trajectory. I've been welcomed into this network of people who have been fighting for equality in Bristol for a long time. Who knows where it will all go, but I definitely feel inspired to keep that movement going, added Rhian. Want our best stories with fewer ads and alerts when the biggest news stories drop? Download our app on iPhone or Android.